Okay, this is going to be an overview of a new webcam that I've got in for review here, and this is going to be the OSBBOT Meet 2 camera. This is a relatively small, compact webcam, and just for setting the frame of reference here, I'm going to be starting on my standard camera, which is going to be the Fujifilm X-T3. Running the Viltrox 27mm f1.2 lens and my standard lighting as well. So all of that is going to give you the baseline for what you're seeing right now. Again, this is going to be the normal Fujifilm that I shoot with on the regular. And then we'll transition over to the Meet 2 and also to a much older traditional webcam as well, just to kind of get the comparison and contrast here. So as we kind of move forward, that's going to be the general idea. Again, lighting is going to remain the same throughout all of these shots, and for the most part, to start out with here, I'm going to be giving you the default settings for everything except for the old webcam. And I'll dive into that when I get there. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and transition over to the the Meet 2. Okay, so this is going to be the Meet 2. I intend to do a little bit of ping-ponging in between the internal microphones versus the boom mic that you see in front of me here. So the first thing that's going to jump out at you is this is going to be a much wider shot. I don't want that to dissuade you as you look into this, though. This is more of a traditional webcam or video format. You'll see I have more room to move around and don't have to be quite as static in the frame as I do with the normal Fujifilm. What I do find, though, is that it does make for a lot more distraction. This is where a lot of times you'll see in Teams or Zoom, WebEx, etc., that you'll start doing the artificial depth of field going on to try and mask what's behind you. Again, it's just distracting as you're seeing everything else going on in the room. But the primary points here that I want to bring up are going to be around color and exposure. So I feel like the color is tracking reasonably well. Again, this is, I'm going to say closer to studio lighting. This is going to be lighting that is coming direct at me. Don't have a lot of other ambient light going on here. You will see in the background I do have a desk lamp that pulses purple and yellow. If you look into the corner of the frame, you can see that reflecting off my glass picture frames back there. Now, with that said, it does seem to add a little bit of tint, but that's not out of the ordinary. It seems to be controlling relatively well. I do see a couple of hot spots, but overall exposure is relatively well controlled. You can tell in the background that we do see a good bit of grain going on there as it kind of struggles to pull in enough light. So with that said, this is not a very intense lighting scenario. I tend to, with the way that I run the Fujifilm, with it pretty much wide open at f1.2, it doesn't need a lot of additional light. So we could crank up the studio lights quite a bit more and provide a little bit less background grain for these webcams. But as it is, I just wanted to do kind of the basics on this as we move forward. A couple of things with the OSBOT camera that kind of jumped out at me on the listing for it. So the primary thing that I noticed was going through the data, and I do have it pulled up here just as I'm looking through it. There's not a call out, as best I can see here, for any reference to the fact that they have a monitor mount. So this is actually a really good thing. Was when I opened the box, I was very concerned about this because there's really not any indication that they have one. As in the text, you can see one every so often, kind of in the background of a picture, um, but it's definitely not leading in their marketing material or in any of the data as far as what would be included in your kit. But it is there, and that is very good. It is also a little bit different than I was anticipating. It is less of a traditional mount and a magnetic mount instead. So it gives you a little bit more versatility as far as how you mount it, and allows for the traditional, or I shouldn't say traditional, but the screw type mount to be on there as well. So again, I think they've done a pretty good job here. It gives you a lot more versatility than your traditional webcam clip mounts, while still providing the webcam clip mount. So again, it mounts up pretty easily here to my display, and my display is also not the most friendly. I do run the OLED displays, so they are pretty much razor thin, and I was still able to get this on and clipped to it without too much hassle. The other bit that I do want to note here as we go through these three cameras is I do have them physically as close as I can make them. The total distance in between the lenses of all of these is going to be about 5 inches. Again, when you see the next camera, you're not going to think that, but genuinely these are very close together. But with that said, let's go ahead and shift over to the Logitech camera. All right, so here is the old school Logitech 930C. The first thing that you're going to notice here is that the quality has dropped very significantly. The frame rate is also not as good. You can see a little bit of jello there. And then the other thing that I have to note is I had to go in and take manual control of this camera. So the automatic settings in here result in a extremely blown out image. It is not capable of adapting to the light sources in any way. And again, you'll see this takes the wide to a very wide. And then also, this is an older camera. I was trying to figure out exactly when I got this camera, and I'm going to say this is probably 6+ years for me owning this particular camera, and when I got it, it was not a fresh off the press model. So again, this is kind of your bog standard corporate webcam. Again, nothing terribly wrong with it. You can have your WebEx and Zoom meetings, but just to kind of give you a perspective on, the difference in between a relatively old webcam and then the newer 4K webcam that we've got from the OBSBOT team here. So let's do one more thing, and I'm going to put all three up on the screen here. And so you'll have my traditional Fujifilm is going to be in the top quadrant here. The OSB is going to be in the bottom left quadrant. And then the Logitech is going to be in the bottom right. Again, you can see just a little bit different on all of these. I'm going to put... Again, sorry, I'm looking really hard into OBS as I do this rather than making eye contact with the camera. But the thing that I notice here is it feels like the OBSBOT is a touch warm looking at the other two. So it does seem to be pumping a little bit more warmth in there overall. Again, not a ton, but it is on the warmer side. Now, and again, you can see the very stark difference in between how much how wide of an angle each of these cameras works under. With the Fujifilm being by far the tightest, and then followed by the OBSBOT, and then lastly will be the old school Logitech. Again, the difference is staggering to me overall, and again, the physical difference here in between all of these is literally less than a hand's breadth apart here. So again, these are all very tight, as tight as I can get them. If I push them any closer, then they start interfering with each other's lenses. So this is pretty much as close as we can get. So let's dive into the software. So let me pull this guy up here. So this is going to be the OBSBOT, and on the left-hand panel here, you're going to have the OBSBOT Center. So this is what you use to do the firmware updates, and then you are also given controls for this as well. So we do have a handful of things that you can run through. One of them is going to be the auto framing option, and we're going to do a close-up here. And you're going to notice we're really not seeing much difference as I run through these. But we can continue to push through, and you can see, like, if I take manual control of this, it can do some pretty significant zoom. And then if you come in and do narrow, you're getting closer to the idea of what I've got with the Fujifilm. So I'm probably halfway in between medium and narrow. But again, for auto framing, not really seeing it, to be honest. This is, for a close-up, this is not really feeling very close. So again, you do have some options here as far as just individual settings. And then you've got a lot of different autofocus functions. So let's see if I can pull it in on medium and then go into the settings. So if I pull it out of autofocus, you can see I very quickly fall out. And then we can pull this back in. And again, there are some pretty decent changes there. So if we change auto exposure to off, you'll notice the background collapses just a little bit. And then if we pull the shutter speed, it seems like 1/30 is as slow as this camera is capable of going. And then you've got a fairly large range of ISO, bottoming out at 100 here, and its preference is somewhere around 600, was where it had landed before. I think you could theoretically get away with a little bit lower, but I don't think it's going to be worth it overall. Again, hitting auto exposure here, it's struggling. It should pull itself back together in a minute here. And then we've got compensation, which will try and darken or brighten as it desires. I think there is, there's a button there to just reset the whole thing. All right, so you've got your standard auto flicker. I do not currently have any fluorescence or other lights that would be providing a flicker to really make a large difference there. We do have the auto white balance function. We can drive the temperature in different directions. Again, the auto white balance is reasonably close out of the box with leaning slightly warm. I'm noticing as I go through and reset some of these, it does seem to reset its preference based off of what we were originally starting with. And then down at the very bottom, you do have your contrast, saturation, hue. Again, all relatively well laid out stuff here. Again, we've got a couple of different things going on here. So we do have the device sleep function. I was reading some other people that were working with this particular device. This seems to be a source of issues for some people, is that the device will lock into a sleep mode and then not be able to come out. I've just completely disabled this function altogether. And then we do have the microphone. So one of the things that I have done, and I'm not going to do it on this particular section, but in the prior section, we are running a noise reduction of medium as default. It's got an automatic gain control, and then it has this radio distance function. Yes. So as I click on this button, I am reminded of one of the very weird quirks with this piece of software. So when I click on this button, at first you would think nothing's happened, right? There's no visual indication of what's happened here. And I'm not going to be able to show you guys, but over to my right, on my other monitor, at the very left edge, has appeared the drop-down menu for this. It is attached to nothing. It is anchored to the left edge of that monitor, but as you can see here, this is not in any way, shape, form, or fashion anchored here. In fact, you guys are in the bottom left corner of my primary monitor. So again, there's some very weird quirks to this particular piece of software, this being one of them. The other is that despite it opening, quote unquote, on the main monitor, whereas the if I pull this up here, you can see the icon, which I do have Windows set to ensure that the icon is only on the disk that it tracks with. So when I have an icon on the left monitor, it does not show up on the taskbar for the right monitor and vice versa. So when you open this application, Windows recognizes that it has opened on the primary monitor as intended, and the label does follow that on the taskbar. But when you look for it, it is not there. It has buried itself to the farthest right side of your rightmost monitor for reasons I have no idea. I've not found any setting or any reason that that is happening. So again, there's some weirdness with these types of softwares. That's why I'm not a huge fan of putting these types of software on a computer, but again, it was the only way to get a firmware on here. The other one that you do have that I do kind of like, sorry, I got on a bit of a rant there, but is you do have the indicator light. So this gives you a little light, and again, my other monitor is showing me the status button that I just clicked on. And so you can turn on and off the little light that's kind of on the top right of the camera to indicate that it is in use. So I do like the ability to change that and also to adjust the brightness of it. Thank you for allowing us to adjust the brightness of LEDs. Those can be very painful to work with when you're trying to not have your eyes blasted. So again, this one's not very offensive even at its highest level, but honestly, if I was doing a lot of work and I did not have the studio lights on, bringing it down to a level 2 here would actually help be less distracting. So with that said, I think that's all I'm going to cover with the software piece. So let's shift back over to the Mini 2. Sorry, keep saying Mini. It's the Meet 2 camera from OBSBOT. Wow, I am struggling right now. So I just wanted to talk through a couple of the other pieces that they do have on their marketing material. They list this as a CMOS camera, and sorry, a bunch of stuff just popped up on my screen. It does capture at a 4K output. It has a longest reach of 26, and it has a maximum aperture of f1.8. As far as I can tell, this is a fixed aperture. I'm not sure why they consider this a max aperture. Again, they do list this as having a screen size. This does not have any screen on it at all. This is a USB-C connector. I did find it a little strange. This is not a full USB-C connector. If you actually look at the connector itself, this is using a reduced number of pins. So this is not a full, I want to say it's 30-pin USB-C connector. Again, they're cross-compatible, but overall it does not make any major, we're not moving a ton of data through here. That's something that genuinely surprises me very frequently, is that using relatively compressed 4K footage can fit over a very small amount of bandwidth. Again, so overall, this is a fairly well put together camera. The other piece with it is very small. Physically slightly taller than the Logitech camera, but only slightly. But width-wise, this is a third of the width of the Logitech camera. So again, this is I'm referencing a camera that is very, very, very old here, but to me, this is a significant upgrade over some of the older products that you may have been using for a very long time. And so what I want to try and conclude here is that, again, these are very solid products overall. I do feel like the price range is generally about where it should be. It's also staggering to me to think that, 6 to 8 years ago, we were paying this or more for the pretty garbage quality that you were looking at earlier from the Logitech camera. It is something I am very glad to have seen as we kind of moved to a more remote working environment. The impetus and drive to push the video quality up was and is greatly appreciated for anybody that was kind of working in this industry. So with that, I think I will go ahead. Let's shift back over to the Fuji one here, and we'll do a quick closeout. So overall, this is a very, very solid piece of gear, and I'm overall pretty darn happy with this particular product. Not really seeing any major downsides or gotchas on this one. And we will, once I run this through post, I will kind of take a look and listen to what the onboard audio sounds like, and just kind of see how it all stacks up. So I hope this has been slightly useful for anybody out there, and we'll talk next time.
So I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to change this while I'm recording, but this is the native MacBook Pro camera and microphone. This is the OBSBOT video. And this is the OBSBOT microphone. I liked it a lot. Everything is magnetic, so you can take it off. And you can move it around if you want to. It comes with this little this little stand. This thing moves and this thing moves, and there's a little lip on it to catch on the edge of your computer. You can turn it vertically and horizontally. Both sides are magnetic. So yeah, pretty cool.